Hello and welcome everyone back to another round of the Virtual Drift Championship. This is round one, top 32 main event at Anglesey Circuit. My name is Craig. With me as always is Tanner. What's up, Tanner? Is he ready? Tanner might not be ready. He's muted in TeamSpeak. But we're back for another round and a new format. There he is. Tanner, what's up?
What's happening? Another wonderful day. I found out that all of my settings decided to reset overnight, but hey, we're working on it on the fly. Another wonderful day to get some drifting in. So wonderful qualifying yesterday. If you guys missed it, it was fantastic. The last 16 battles were quite crazy, and now we're here for the main event today.
Yeah, absolutely. Qualifying was absolutely insane. We had 90s all over the board, all the way up until the 28th position. I believe we can pull up those scores from yesterday. Vitaly taking that number one position with that 97.3, Zach O'Sullivan with his 96.5, and Mustafa with his 96.2. And then all the way down the board, just 90s everywhere, as you can see there. You're just now joining us who have missed out on yesterday. Here is the line map. Big initiation over the top of the hill. Classic Anglesey layout all the way back from 2019 was the last time we used this track, and we only used it for a licensing event. Never saw any battles, but we saw our first battles yesterday in our last 16 qualifying battles. But again, initiating over the crest there with a big decel zone. But again, we don't want to see drivers parking their cars at the top of the hill. It's a nice smooth decel off throttle area, and then back on throttle to drive down to your first inside clip at clip 2, out to clip 3 for your next outside zone, then 4 and 5, that Manji section of the course, down into your next decel zone at clip 5. We want to see those drivers extend through that clip 5 and fill that zone all the way, and then apex that next turn at that inside clip number 6, out to your next outside zone that's kind of floating in the middle of the track there, not quite out to the track edge, is clip 7, and then your last and final transition into that wall right at clip 8, your last and final outside zone with a little off throttle area heading in there, allowing for those drivers to check up just a little bit before lighting back off right before that last and final outside zone. We'll take a look at yesterday's last 16 qualifying battles and how we sort of got there again. So the top 28 are locked into the top 32. And that's yesterday in qualifying. So they were able to call it a day and go do whatever they like. A lot of practice happened all day yesterday after the event, which is cool to see the river filled up and guys having fun in there. But again, we have Lukasz Pasquini getting slotted into the 29th position. Cameron Mustard grabbing that 30th position. Olivier Blias grabbing that 31st position. And Wananen grabbing that 32nd position in that last 16 bracket. And here is today's top 32 main event bracket. Vitaly Asov and Wananen Jorkes will start us off on that top left-hand side of the bracket. So we separate everyone into their own groups. So those first 4 battles will be group 1, then we'll work our way down and then up into the right-hand side of the bracket and down. Small short break in between top 32 and 16, but we're running straight through it today. Tanner, what do you think?
Oh, I think it's going to be a great day after watching battles yesterday. Just those last 16 battles were already so intense. I think we had 3 more times during those battles. And seeing some of the newcomers push their way through, I think maybe some of the veterans got to be a little scared of these new guys that came through this year.
Yeah, looking strong indeed. I think, yeah, and it almost doesn't even matter where you, I mean, of course it matters where you qualify, right? But every single driver here in today's event is a insanely good driver in that chase position as well, and it's anybody's game today. Vitaly and Wannanen now at the line, ready to kick things off for round number 1.
That's exactly right, Craig. We have Vitaly Isayev in that lead lane after putting on an amazing qualifying run yesterday, grabbing that number 1 spot, and in the chase, fighting his way through those last 16 battles. The newcomer Wannanen in that BMW beside him, ready to go as well. The lights go on, and the first battle of today is underway. Down the straight, initiating in, looking great for Vitaly Isayev out front. Wannanen already kind of on the attack there out of outer zone 1 as they come to that inside clip, down to outer zone 2, now through the Monty section, through 3. The chase already transitioning along the bumper as they come to the next inside clip, through that floating outer zone. On the attack is Wannanen in that chase position and not giving Vitaly any breathing room through that run.
Yeah, starting things off right, let's take another look at it here on the replay. Vitaly out front here, getting away a little bit as they initiate, and Wannanen having to play catch up. He does get there indeed by clip number 3, that second outside zone, stays with him through the Manji section. Good job there to cut a little bit of line, cut a little bit of angle, get that proximity right, bumper to bumper through that last and final transition. There they go across that finish line.
Let's see how the second half of this battle unfolds. Wannanen now in that lead lane, and Vitaly Isayev ready to chase him down. The lights go on, and the second half of this battle is now underway. Wannanen lighting up the tires all the way down the straight, initiating, and Vitaly comes in too hot and actually hits the front end of Wannanen. Wannanen does a good job to keep it on track, and he misses out on that inside clip from the contact, but does great through the Monty section throughout its zone 2, 3, and 4. Now up the hill towards that floating outer zone. Wannanen's on form, but Vitaly is on the attack, and another little bumper tap there on the fender as they cross the line.
Ooh, this could be huge. Vitaly qualifying first yesterday, having a short day. Let's take another look here on the replay. Wannanen out front, initiating in, and yeah, big dive there from the chase. Of course, judges will analyze, make sure Wannanen isn't dropping too much speed there, parking it on Vitaly out front. They keep things going as if nothing happened there, heading into that next floating outside zone, and then we got a little bit of contact coming up there, crossing that finish line. We go to our judges. Vitaly on the left, Wannanen on the right. Big contact in the very first battle, and in a spot yeah, maybe not expect. Of course, there is a small DSL zone there upon initiation, but again, we don't want to see those lead cars parking or dropping too much speed. Just really kind of throw your car in, wait a second, and then light back off to extend that line out and then drive down to that next inside clip. Really apex the turn right there at that inside clip is the idea. So Wannanen is going to get the win there after that big contact in the second half of the battle. Carl does go left for Vitaly, but Chris and Ed go right for Wannanen. We'll see him in the top 16.
And already big upsets just after the first battle. This track is going to be crazy today, and these drivers are going to want it. The newcomer wanted in, moving on into the top 16, defeating Vitaly Azeyev, our #1 qualifier. Next battle on the light, Luciano Canero up against Ernestus Yakulibis, initiating in. Luciano out front in that 400Z, doing good off the initiation through outer zone 1 down towards outer zone 2. Now through the Manji section, Ernestus keeping good proximity through this whole track so far, glued to the door of Luciano's car in that lead lane, and a solid run for both of those drivers.
Yeah, let's take a second look here on the replay. Luciano out front, Ernestus giving chase and lighting him off down, up the run up, really up the big hill, grabbing that inside clip out front, nice and clean out front, nice and clean in that chase position as well, backing off a little bit through the Manji section, but then making that dive. Clip 5, getting around that next inside clip. Final transition there, and across that finish line, nice and clean.
Well, let's see how the second half of this battle goes. Ernestus now out front in that S chassis of his, up against that 400Z of Luciano Canero, now in the chase. Lights go on for the second half of this battle, and now we see what happens. Initiating in, Ernestus right along the bumper, big tap to the front end from Luciano Canero in the chase. It doesn't upset Ernestus all too much as they come through the Manji section now, through outer zone 4, start driving up the hill to that next inside clip. Maybe another little bit of contact there through that inside clip, through the floating outer zone, into the final wall ride. Luciano right along the door, but will that contact end up being the decider?
Yeah, very similar contact to what we just saw in the very first battle. Second half of the battle as well, we see him initiate in. It looks like he picks up throttle when he should as well. Luciano getting into the front of that car, making big corrections to keep things going. Around that next inside clip, and Luciano applying some pressure. Maybe trying to make up for that big dive along that initiation. Not making it easy for the judges today already. Luciano on the left, Ernestus on the right. And quickly to the right, Ernestus getting the win over Luciano after more contact in the second half of the battle.
I think if any of the other drivers are watching, they should all start going, oh, maybe we need to do something a little different off the initiation. A lot of contact keeps happening there. And congratulations to Ernestus Yakulibis. He will now see Juanan in the top 16 as we move over to our next battle. In the lead lane in the R34, Augusto Ferreira. Amazing qualifying yesterday up against Victor Lacheras in that Lexus in the chase. Come down the straight, initiating. Ooh! Victor Lacheras not getting the car to angle and going into the back of Augusto's R34 before the initiation point. Couldn't get it sideways. We'll let him finish out this run, but not a good start here for these drivers this morning, this afternoon, or this evening, depending on where you are.
Yeah, what's going on? Let's take another look on the replay. Augusto out front. Initiating. Oh, okay. So it actually looks like there might have been contact right as they initiated that rear bumper to front bumper and kind of stopped Victor's car from rotating. Augusto was still able to rotate his car, but Victor getting caught up and then just rocket ships forward into Augusto's car. Unfortunate.
Well, let's see if the second half of this battle can be a little cleaner. Victor Lacheras in the lead lane. Augusto Ferreira ready to chase him down. Lights go on. The second half of the battle's underway. No mishaps at initiation this time. Augusto Ferreira gives him lots of room off that initiation. Now starts to come back at him towards outer zone 2. Now through the Manji section, just playing a nice, clean game in that chase, mirroring Victor very nicely in the lead. Victor putting on a good lead run here, but I think that contact, that'll be all she wrote.
Yeah, let's take another look here. Second half of the battle here on the replay. Victor out front, initiating in. Augusto maybe playing it safe, but reels him in quickly for inside clip. Number one does sacrifice quite a bit of line there. Still keeping it together, back in that chase position. Victor doing a good job out front, getting around that inside clip. Nice on that outside zone. Settles into the wall. And Augusto riding the struggle bus a little bit back there in that chase position, but again, maybe just making sure that he completes his run. I believe that's all he really needed to do. Augusto on the left, Victor on the right. And there it is. Sliding left for Augusto Ferreira. He finds himself in the top 16 later today.
So after some more contact, Augusto Ferreira moves that the next top 16 spot, and our next battle and under the gate, ready to go. Abdulrahman El-Shetwi up against Robert Kowinski. Abdulrahman in the FRS, Robert in the GR86. Initiating in, lots of speed from Abdulrahman out front. Robert having to almost drive down the course to try and get back up on the door of Abdulrahman as they come through the Monty section. Now Robert's starting to apply pressure, starting to get right in that pocket, right on the door as they come through the floating outer zone into the final wall ride, a tap into the wall from Abdulrahman out front, but it doesn't upset the chase and they finish out the run.
Yeah, really throwing it hard into that last and final transition here. Abdulrahman out front, Robert giving chase here on the replay. Robert getting a little mixed up there after that initiation, cutting a lot of line in that chase position, but staying with him nicely through the Manji section of the course, cutting a little bit of line there as well for the next inside clip. Abdulrahman doing what he needs to do out front and gives that ball just a tiny little tap.
Now time for run number 2. Robert Kowinski now out front. Abdulrahman ready to chase him down. Run number 2 is underway. Who will go see Augusto Ferreira in the top 16? Initiating in, looking good for Robert out front. Big dive there from Abdulrahman in the chase. Gets up on the door of Robert Kowinski as they come through outer zone 2 and 3, now through 4. Looking good for both drivers. Nicely mirroring each other. Doing a good job out front here as they transition right along the bumper. It was a bold move from Abdulrahman, but he gets right up on the door as they cross that finish line.
Yeah, let's take a second look here. Robert out front here on the replay. Abdulrahman giving chase, driving up that hill. Initiating in nice and clean from Robert out front. A lot of line sacrificed in that chase position, but similar to Robert going up on that rumble strip on the inside clip. Robert looking a little wide around that inside clip, but perfect on that floating box. Nice transition to finish things out by both of them. Abdulrahman almost passing him across that finish line. We'll go to our judges. Abdulrahman on the left, Robert on the right. We've got a one more time. Carl is going to slide left for Abdulrahman, but Chris and Ed go with a one more time.
First, one more time of the top 32 of round 1 of the Virtual Drift Championships has been called. I know we had the last 16 one more times, but now it's official. It's the main event. And I think it's a good one to do. I think a one more time is a great call, as now we get to see them hopefully clean it up. Maybe some of the nerves are a little bit gone, and we can see some good battling from these two here. Abdulrahman El-Shetwi now back in the lead position. Robert Kowinski ready to chase him down. The lights come on and the one more time battle is underway. Out of the start gate, nice and clean, initiating in. Looking great for both drivers this time around through outer zone 1. Missing out on the inside clip a little bit was the chase as he tries to stay on the door of Abdulrahman's car out front. They come through the Manji section nice and clean. A little tap to the fender there from the chase to the lead as they come into that final outer zone. A big bobble from the chase as he tries to keep it along the door and cross that finish line.
Yeah, here we go with that replay. Abdul Rahman out front. Robert he chased bumper to bumper along that initiation, much cleaner from that chase position. Does wash just a little bit there back around that inside clip. Stays with him through this Manji section of the course, sacrificing a little bit of angle, but stays there around that next turn, filling that box, and then a nice final dive there in that chase position.
Let's see how the second half of the one more time battle unfolds to see who is going to see Augusto Ferreira in the top 16. The lights go on and the second half's underway. Robert Kavinsky out front. Abdulrahman chasing him down. Initiating in. Abdulrahman way closer on the initiation as they come through outer zone 1, through that inside clip, putting on the pressure coming into the Manji section. As they go through outer zone 3, now into outer zone 4, dropping a bit of tire was the lead of Robert Kavinsky, but it doesn't seem to have hurt his speed coming up the hill through that floating outer zone into the final wall ride. Hits the wall just a little bit. That was a nice, clean 2 battles.
It sure was. Let's take another look here. Robert out front. On the replay, look at that, nice and clean once more. Right in the pocket is Abdul Rahman in that chase position, and with him bumper to bumper through these transitions, making a good dive there as well. Much better on matching that angle, not quite perfect. Final dive for the last and final outside zone, a little tap along that wall. Scrappy battle between these two, and we go to our judges. Abdul Rahman on the left, Robert on the right. Do we have a victor here in the one more time battle between these two? In the top 32. Chris goes right. Ed goes left. And Carl goes left. Abdul Rahman Al Shetwi getting the win. And we'll see him in the top 16 later. We'll take a look at our current top 32 bracket and how it's already playing out. So next group of drivers to load in is that bottom left. John Reeves, Lukasz Pasquini up next. Again, Wannen getting the win over Vitali. Big upset after getting his wins in the last 16 qualifying battles. And now getting the win here in his first top 32 battle over the number 1 qualifier. Taliasov. Ernestas Yakubis also getting the win over Luciano Canero. Augusto Ferreira also earning his victory over Victor Lacheras. And just now Abdul Rahman Al Shetwi taking the win over Robert Yevsensky in that one more time battle. But again, up next, Jean Reeves and Lukasz Pasquini. All right, it looks like drivers are coming to the line. Rampage, ready to go in the C6 Corvette. Lukasz pulling up in the BMW.
Exactly that. Dijon Reeves in that C6 Corvette, and a great qualifying from him yesterday. He'll see himself up against Lucas Pasquini, who fought his way all the way through the last 16 battles just for a shot here at the main event in that E90 BMW. They initiate into outer zone 1. That looks good off the initiation. Big aggression from Lucas Pasquini. So we saw that yesterday too in the last 16 battles. They come through the Manji section, bumper to bumper on the transitions through that inside clip up towards the final wall ride. They come into it right along the wall, but a very clean run by both drivers there.
Yeah, let's take another look here. John out front in the C6, the one and only in the field, Lukash. Going after it in that initiation. Look there, right in the pocket through turn number 1. Following him close, bumper to bumper through the transitions. You're matching that angle around that inside clip. John nice and clean out front as well, putting it along that wall and across the finish line.
Well, now time for Lucas to see what he can do out front in that E90 BMW. Dijon gonna chase him down for the second half of this battle. The lights go on and off they go. Lucas initiates in, Dijon right there with him. Right to angle goes Lucas. Maybe not quite to angle went the chase, but they get through the first two outer zones beautifully with that inside clip. They come through the Manji section. Dijon on the attack. He's on the door of Lucas Pasquini. They come into that final wall ride, and look at Dijon just trying to almost push him through that finish line.
Absolutely. Now, to be fair, he did have some ground to make up there in that chase position. Let's take another look along that initiation. Maybe some bumper-to-bumper contact. Dijon's car just doesn't really get to angle, at least the angle he needed and maybe wanted. But gets back into the fight here around this next inside clip. Does cut that line just ever so slightly, and then a last final dive, almost pushing him across that finish line, as you said. And we go to our judges. Reeves on the right, or on the left. Lukash on the right. We have another upset here. Reeves qualifying 4th. Lukash fighting his way through that last 16 qualifying battles, and he does get the win over Rampage, and we'll see him in the top 16.
You know, I said it at the beginning there, Craig. You know, these new guys, I think some of the veterans, they got to be worried. They are doing what they need to do and moving on up. So let's see how the rest of the day unfolds with them. We have our next battle up under the start gate. Daniel Andrzej in that 1 series, ready to go underneath the start gate in the lead lane. Beside him in that Team Heinze RTR Mustang, Nico Stelea. Well, they're ready for their top 32 battle. The lights go on and off they go, initiating in. Right to angle goes Daniel Andreev, but Nico Stelea right on him off that initiation. Through the inside clip down to outer zone 2, now through 3, along the bumper on the transition through outer zone 4, now to climb up the hill. Nico keeping the car at a good pace, like just right there on the door of Daniel Andreev the whole way around.
Yeah, Nico looking pretty comfortable in the RTR. First event for him in the new car. Daniel returning back in the 1 series. Nico going after it in turn number 1 there. Bumper to bumper through the Manji section of the course, following Daniel closely around that next inside clip. Daniel doing a fantastic job out front as well. Clean the final transition to finish things off. And they go back to the line.
Back under the start gate, Nico now slots into that lead lane for the second half of the battle. Daniel in the chase, ready to go. The lights go on and the second half is quickly underway. Lighting up the tires in that RTR Mustang in the lead, sends it into outer zone 1. And look at Daniel Andreev right there with them. Right on the door through the first 3 clips, now through the Manji section. Daniel Andreev is giving him no breathing room. Through this course, he is glued to the door of Nico's RTR Mustang as they come through that final outer zone and finish out the run in a very clean battle between the two.
Very clean indeed. Let's take another look. Nico out front. Daniel giving chase indeed right into the pocket quickly in turn number 1. Stays where he needs to be. Down to outside zone number 2, 3, and 4. Nico doing a fantastic job out front. Does drive in maybe a little soon out front, but Daniel doing a good job to deal with it and just follow him right on through. There they go across that finish line. Wow, what a battle here in the top 32. Daniel on the left, Nico on the right. So we have a one more time. Ed goes left and another one more time. They're going back to the line.
For the second one more time in only the first half of the top 32. And honestly, I'm excited for it. More drifting. I'm happy for it. Split day format's been a little rejuvenating, a little more exciting on day 2. We're not as tired, so we're ready to go. Oh, Daniel Andreev now slots back into that lead position. Nico Salea right beside him, ready to go for the one more time battle. Only one moves on to see Lucas Pasquini. The lights go out, off they go, initiating in, looking good for Daniel out front. Nico right there with him as they come down the hill towards outer zone 2. Now into outer zone 3, right along the bumper was that transition on both of the Manji sections. Through outer zone 3 and 4, through that inside clip, up to the top. Coming into the final wall ride, Nico pushing towards that door even closer, and they cross the line.
Let's take another look here. Daniel out front. Nico giving chase. One more time battle between these two. Initiating in, and Daniel right to angle. Nico cutting the line just a little bit down into outside zone number 2, 3, and 4. Look at that bumper to bumper. Nico washing just a little bit. Falling back behind and then making a final dive here in the last and final outside zone. There they go across that finish line, and they go to the second half of their one more time battle.
So at the start gate, Nico in the lead. Daniel ready to chase him down for the second half of this battle. Lights go on, off they go. Initiating in, looking good through outer zone 1. Not the same aggression we saw out of the first battle from Daniel in that chase, but he quickly gets on the door of Nico as they come through the Manji section. Well, that wasn't contact, I don't know, into outer zone 4, but they kept it together, and Daniel right along the door of Nico Salea as they come through that final outer zone, door to door and side by side.
Well, I'm standing up. Let's take another look on the replay. Nico out front, Daniel giving chase right along the bumper through that initiation and quickly into the pocket. Around that inside clip number 1, filling that next outside zone. Nico could have been a little bit deeper. Nicely done there. That transition by Daniel Andreev in that chase position. Throw it right into the pocket and stay there all the way around that next turn. Filling that last and final outside zone is both of those drivers, and we go to our judges once more. Daniel Andreev on the left, Nico on the right. And there it is, sliding left for Daniel Andreev, getting the win over Nico Salea. And we'll see him in the top 16.
A hard-fought battle by both drivers, but Daniel Andreev moves on to see Lucas Pasquini in the top 16. We wait for our next 2 drivers to come up to the start gate. Dimitri Mitten in the lead, being chased down by yet another RTR car. You're not seeing double. Nope, this is the blue one of Reese Tatterson on the Team Heinze RTR cars. He'll be in that chase. The lights go on and off they go for their battle. Initiating in, Dimitri Mitten out front. Reese Tatterson sending it in off the initiation to get right up on him through that inside clip. Now down to outer zone 2. Into the Manji section. Losing a bit of ground is Reese Tatterson in that chase, but he makes up for it here in that inside clip. Coming up the hill now, the floating outer zone. Oh, choking up the transition and tumbling away.
Oh my god.
Oh,
right.
no.
Flip that. We'll go to. Oh no! Well, let's watch where we're going. Let's take another look on the replay. Dimitri out front. Reese Tatterson giving chase. Filling that next outside zone through the Manji section. Reese going after a dive here around this inside clip. Nicely done. Staying right there with him and then just catching his bumper, stopping him from transitioning. And murders Dimitri Mitten live on Dream.
I hope Dimitri's okay. When those crashes happen, it's not a fun time. But they're back under the start gate, ready for the second half of their battle. Reese Tatterson now in the lead lane. Dimitri Mitten ready to chase him down. They patiently wait for those lights to turn on. Here we go. The second half of the battle underway. Reese Tatterson out front. Dimitri Mitten chasing down, initiating in through outer zone 1. Looking good through outer zone 1. Down the hill here. Dimitri Mitten having a good proximity towards Reese Tatterson in that chase. Now coming up the hill towards the second to last outer zone, and then where it all went wrong last time, Say's all right this time. Dimitri puts it on the door, and they cross the finish line.
Yeah, back around for the replay. Reese Tatterson out front this time. We get through the run clean. Reese filling outside zone number 1. Getting down to that inside clip. Dimitri right along that bumper through that first transition. Making a dive here for inside clip number 2. He's doing a good job out front. Nice and clean. Great transition to finish things off. And there they go across that finish line. And we go to our judges. Dimitri on the left. Reese Tatterson on the right. Yeah, it's a good thing it's sim, you know?
That's kind of what I'm getting at is like, hey, if that would have happened in real life, and it could have. I mean, the way these models are, that is something that could have happened, and that's just crazy to watch how far he tumbled too. As we all know, Assetto's normally not the best once the car comes airborne, but he just kept going.
He did indeed keep going. Yeah, Assetto really doesn't like when the wheels disconnect. Now with CSV and things like that, things can, obviously be fixed. If you've seen all the rally stuff that's been going on and with CSP, very, very cool stuff. But here we're not using any of that. And yeah, when cars land on their roofs, weird things tend to happen as well. As we've seen cars straight up teleport through walls as well. One driver in particular doing it twice on the same course, just in multiple ways.
That new drift theory that we haven't found out about yet.
That one was indeed insane. Oh, look at there. So judges going right. Now Ed does go left for Dimitri. Chris and Carl go right for Reese Tatterson. Maybe we can get some insight from them, but I would assume that before transitioning, Dimitri makes a checkup, which is a big no-no. And I think that is kind of across the board in almost all tracks. You should be picking up that momentum and transitioning with that momentum. And if there need be decel, it needs to be after you transition. Period. Point blank. No other ways around it. So yeah, maybe we can get some insight from those judges and why they gave Reese Tatterson the win.
Hello.
Hey, Chris.
I hear you want an explanation. So yeah, so that one it's all down to the fact that obviously in reality, in cases of big contact like that, you almost universally, depends on the series and the rule book, but for the most part, all judges will have to agree upon assigning fault one way or the other. The beauty of the esports scene is that we don't have to do that, so we don't. Obviously, that all comes down to the contact that happens on the first run, on the transition from clip 7 to clip 8. For myself and Carl, we see that as Dimitri playing too much with the throttle and not maintaining or increasing his pace before the off-throttle zone. As such, we are assigning Dimitri at fault for the contact, and then therefore Reese takes the win. On the reverse of this, Ed, obviously, same thing, but in his opinion, no, Dimitri is holding enough speed to not, for it to not be acceptable for Reese to jump forward and hit him through the transition. Therefore, in his opinion, Reese would have got the win. But majority rules, myself and Carl have given the win to Reese.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you, Chris, for that explanation. I'm sure Hope Stream appreciates it as well. We appreciate you as our head judge, and we'll continue on with the round.
We sure will. And this is our final round for the left side of the bracket as well. Steven Hatcher in that lead lane after an impressive comeback qualifying for him up against Yaroslav Visaleo as they initiate into outer zone 1. Looking good for Steven Hatcher so far, but woo, Yaroslav right along the door through outer zone, through that inside clip in outer zone 2 as they come through the Manji section. He gets gapped a little bit here, leaving the Manji section, but now Yaroslav's able to catch back up and get back up onto the door of Steven Hatcher as they finish out their run.
Yeah, let's check it out here. Steven Hatcher out front, Yaroslav giving chase. First half of their top 32 battle. Down in the bottom left-hand corner of the bracket now, Steven driving in maybe a little bit early. Apexes turn number 1 a little too soon, but gets around that inside clip. Yaroslav staying with him through the Manji section of the course. I'm not sure what just came out of the back of Steven Hatcher's car, but he fills the next outside zone. Final transition along that wall. Big dive from Yaroslav. And we go back to that starting line.
Back around indeed. Yaroslav now in the lead lane. Second half of the battle ready to get underway. Steven Hatcher ready to chase him down. Lights go on. Off they go. We will go see Reese Tatterson in the top 16. Initiating in. Looking good off the initiation for Yaroslav out front. Steven Hatcher on the attack though. Steven Hatcher looking back in form after a few years of not enjoying his old chassis, but looking great in this S chassis. Yaroslav coming around that final, the second to last outer zone into the wall ride. A little bobble there from the chase getting up on the door of Yaroslav, and we'll see what the judges say about that.
Yeah, let's take a second look here. Yaroslav out front. Steven going after it there, snapping to angle in that chase position, matching it almost immediately. But then sacrificing quite a bit there in that Manji section of the course. We see Yaroslav go wide of inside clip number 2 though, and Steven following him right along through there, across that finish line. Another one I think could go either way here. Steven Hatcher on the left, Yaroslav on the right. It looks like we have a decision there. Sliding left for Steven Hatcher. Steven Hatcher getting the win here in the top 32. We'll take a look at our bracket here as we are done with the left-hand side. Wananen getting the win over the number 1 qualifier, Vitaly Sov, earlier. We'll see him in the top 16 later. Ernestes Yakubis also getting the win over Luciano Carnero. Augusto Fedena moves on over Victor Lacheras. Abdulrahman Al-Shetwi getting the win over Robert Yevsensky. Dijon Reeves and Lukasz Pasquini. Lukasz comes out on top. We'll see him in the top 16 as well. Daniel Andreev also taking down Nico Stalea in the RTR Mustang. Moving on in his 1 Series BMW, Reese Tatterson getting the win over Dmitry Mitten. A controversial contact there in that final transition. Reese getting the win. We'll see him in the top 16 against Steven Hatcher, who just earned his victory over Yaroslav Vasilio. But up next, Zach O'Sullivan and Olivier Blias, Nick Hang and Masashi Yoshida, Ikon Pileski and Samuel Cuddy, Liam Akihiko and Stanislav Yarosov.
The first battle of the right-hand side of the top 32 bracket is underneath the tower and ready to go. In the lead lane, previous VDC champion Zach O'Sullivan up against Olivier Belias. both the mini 36s. We'll see how this battle plays out as they do the run up and initiate in. Zach Sullivan looking good off the initiation. Olivier right there with them as they come through that inside clip into outer zone 2. Maybe a little tire drop there from the chase. They come into the Manji section, really throwing on the angle as Olivier in that chase as they come through the next inside clip up to that floating outer zone, now to the wall ride. Olivier tries to go for the door and just about gets there before the end of that run.
Yeah, let's take another look here. Zach out front leading Olivier through the course, and Zach getting out ahead through that run up. Nicely done for turn number 1, grabbing that inside clip. We see a little tiny wash from Olivier back there in that chase position, but he does well to deal with it. Goes for another dive here in that chase position, washes a little bit as well. Zach out front, near perfect lead right along that wall, and Olivier applying some pressure across that finish line.
Well, back under the start gate and ready to go for run number 2. Olivier now slots into the lead position. Zach O'Sullivan ready to chase him down, try and take one of the next remaining spots in the top 16 later today. The lights go on and the second half of the battle's underway. Olivier through the start gate nice and clean, initiating into outer zone 1, looking good. Zach O'Sullivan right there with him as they come through inside clip down to outer zone 2, now into the Manji section. Olivier doing a good job out front here, but Zach doing a perfect job in that chase to mirror him and keep a good proximity as they come into the final outer zone into that wall ride, and Zach almost overtaking him through that final outer zone.
Yeah, here we go with that replay. Olivier leading Zach O'Sullivan through the course here in the top 32, initiating in. Nicely done by Olivier out front, a little tight to the inside clip. Could have been deeper on outside zone number 2, 3 as well. 4 right along that trek edge, getting around that inside clip. Zach applying a pressure around turn number 2 into turn number 3 along that wall, and as you said, almost passing Olivier. Zach on the left here, Olivier on the right. Winner moves on into the top 16. And there it is, unanimous decision. Zach O'Sullivan getting the win over Olivier Blias.
Zach O'Sullivan moving on, taking one of the remaining spots in the top 16 as we have our next battle under the start gate. Nick Hang in the lead lane in the beautiful Ford Sierra, up against Masashi Yoshida in that the wagon, sedan? Oh, I'm blanking on what they actually call that E36. My bad. It's early for me. As they initiate in, looking good through outer zone 1 for Nick Hang. He threw it down in qualifying yesterday, but Masashi did a good job too as he starts to put on the pressure coming into the Manji section. But a huge bobble for the chase, leaving outer zone 3. They come through 4 nice and clean and into that floating outer zone. They make the transition. Ooh, Masashi getting hung up as well into that final outer zone before crossing the line.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he hit the back of Nick Hang's car or he hit the wall. Let's take another look. Nick out front. Sashi getting left behind in turn number 1 there, down to outside zone number 2. He's there back into the fight, but gets out of it with a big wobble in that chase position around that inside clip, sacrificing some line there. Here's that final transition. Yeah, I'm not sure. There they go across that finish line, finishing out the run regardless, and we'll flip them around.
And flipped around indeed. Masashi Yoshida now in the lead lane. Nick Hang ready to chase him down. The lights go on for the second half of the battle. Who will go to see Zach O'Sullivan in the top 16? Initiating in. Looking good for Masashi Yoshida out front. Already on the attack is Nick Hang as he actually bumps him going into outer zone 2 from that chase, but dropping a bit of tire was Masashi going into outer zone 3 and then coming up into that outer zone. Looks like a lot of angle thrown on by Masashi before they come into that final outer zone. Nick Hang ended up touching him through that second inside clip.
Yeah, let's take another look here. Masashi out front, and not the cleanest lead we've seen from him. Going for it though. Big angle to start things out. Apex is turn number 1 a little bit too soon. Could have been deeper on outside 2. Drops the tire at 3. And there we see he's basically backwards coming into inside clip. Number 2 gets a little bit of contact from that chase position. Then really goes after it there, but over rotates and has to pull out of that angle before crossing that finish line. Will go to our judges. Nick Hang on the left. Sashi on the right. And there it is, Nick Hang getting the unanimous victory, and we'll see him in the top 16.
The Nick Hang moving forward to see Zach O'Sullivan in the top 16. Our next battle under the tower, Tikon Pileski up against Samuel Cuddy. Tikon in the lead lane, Samuel in the chase. The lights go on in the next top 32 battles underway. Through the start gate nice and clean, Tikon initiates in. Samuel Cuddy leaving a lot of room through outer zone 1, but catching up to him down by the bottom of the hill to outer zone 2. Now the transitions through the Manji section. Samuel starting to get right into the pocket of Tikon Pileski. Tikon doing a good job out front here as they come into the final outer zone, and maybe a little door tap there from Samuel just at the very end.
Yeah, overall pretty clean. Let's take another look. Tikon, he's out front. Samuel getting chased. Tikon almost over rotating there through that initiation, getting up on that rumble strip just a little bit. But from then on, locked in to his lead run around that inside clip. Right along that floating box out there. Samuel going after a final dive, pulling out of the angle just a little bit before crossing the finish line. But overall, clean by both.
Now back around at the start gate, Samuel Cuddy now in the lead lane. Tikon Pileski ready to chase him down. The lights go on for the second half of this battle. It's now underway. Nice and clean to the start gate, initiating in, looking good off the initiation through outer zone 1. Tikon Pileski right on the door of Samuel Cuddy after outer zone 1. Through that inside clip into outer zone 2, now into the Manji section, leaving no room for error on those transitions as they come to that inside clip into the second to last outer zone. Look at the aggression from Tikon, applying the pressure and finishing out the run side by side.
Yeah, Tikon making quite the statement there. Let's take a second look. Samuel out front and trying to get away from Tikon, but just can't. Tikon diving in quickly in turn number 1. Not the greatest line out front. Tikon doing a good job to deal with it. Bumper to bumper through the transitions. Reels him in quickly for inside clip number 2. Stays with him through this final transition and wall ride. Look at there across that finish line. Tikon almost passing him. And we go to our judges. Tikon on the left, Samuel Cuddy on the right. And there it is, unanimous decision. Tikon Pileski moves on, and we'll see him in the top 16.
Tikon Pileski advancing on. Our next battle under the tower. Newcomer Liam Akihiko. Qualifying 10th yesterday, really showing out for their first time in the VDC, up against Stanislav Tarasov in that FD RX-7. The lights go on. The next top 32 battle underway. Initiating in that lead, Liam. Right on him, though, is Stanislav as they come through outer zone 1. Maybe a tire drop there from the chase going into that inside clip. Maybe a little too far inside. Through the Manji section along the bumper is the chase to the lead. But Liam doing a good job out front here, putting the car exactly where it needs to go, gets right on the wall. But Stanislav finishes it out on the door.
Yeah, good way to start the battle off. Let's take another look. Liam leading Stanislav in that FDRX7, initiating in. Fantastic job, right to angle. Good line through turn number 1. Could have been a little bit deeper on outside zone number 2, but grabs 3 and 4 nicely, staying off that rumble strip around that inside clip. Stanislav reeling him in, staying with him through this final transition, maybe dropping a little bit of tire there before that wall. but across the finish line, and we'll flip him around.
It flipped around indeed. Only one can go see Tikhon Pleski in the top 16. Stanislav Tarasov now in the lead lane. Liam Akihiko ready to chase him down. Initiating and looking good off the initiation through outer zone 1. Liam already applying the pressure down to that inside clip through outer zone 2. Now into 3. Not a lot of room on that transition into outer zone 4. Liam applying the pressure here. He knows he has to be aggressive. Stanislav up front doing almost everything he needs to do to just hold it together, but Liam not letting him go an inch away from him.
Yeah, let's take a second look here. Stanislav now out front, leading Liam through the course. Liam going after it in that chase position, getting right into the pocket quickly, but making a little bit of a understeer around that inside clip number 1, staying with him through that Manji section of the course. Stanislav driving into the inside clip a little early, grabbing that next outside zone. Final transition, pulling out of the angle just a little bit. There they go across that finish line. A little bit of contact between the two. We go to our judges. Liam on the left, Stanislav on the right. And there we are. We have a decision. Liam getting the win over Stanislav Tarasov. He finds himself in the top 16, but he's got Tikhon Pleski next. But before that, Mustafa Amine and Cameron Mustard coming up next in our next group of top 32. Brandon Patrick and Braden Swan, Darius Ostrakin, Oliver Eppinger, Brett Wolford, and Alan Hines. Our last and final top 32 battle RTR teammates facing off. All right, and last call from those judges. Our next battle is coming to the line again. Mustafa Amine and Cameron Mustard.
Mustafa Amine in the lead lane. His new chassis, that Lexus IS 300. And also in a new chassis, well, the man beside him in the chase, Cameron Mustard, and now in that JZA 90 Supra. Let's see how both these drivers get down with their new cars. They both qualified well. Only one moves on to the top 16, initiating in lots of angle into outer zone 1, throws it in. Mustafa Amine, but right with him, Cameron Mustard as they come through outer zone 2, now into the Manji section, outer zone 3 and outer zone 4. But Cameron Mustard sticking to the door, good proximity as they come up into outer zone, the final outer zone. A little wall tap there from Mustafa Amine before finishing out the run.
Yeah, let's go back to the replay. Mustafa out front, leading Cameron Mustard. Cameron switching chassis, now on an A90. Mustafa also switching chassis, both brand new cars for these two. Mustafa almost going backwards through turn number 1. Cameron doing a good job to deal with it and then a dive there around that inside clip. Mustafa perfect on the floating box, and near perfect until that tiny little wall tap before crossing the finish line.
Well, now back around at the start gate. Cameron Mustard now in the lead lane. Mustafa Amine ready to chase him down. Lights go on in the second half. The battle's underway, initiating into outer zone 1. Looking good for Cameron Mustard. On the attack already is Mustafa Amine, maybe even touching him just a little bit through that inside clip as they leave outer zone 2 and come into the Manji section. Along the bumper, Mustafa sticking it to the door of Cameron Mustard as they come up the hill now into that final outer zone, the final wall ride. The aggression's put on, and they cross the finish line.
Yeah, really clean lead out front from Cameron. And a pretty good chase from Mustafa. Let's take another look. Over the hill, filling outside zone number 1. Around that inside clip. Could have been deeper on outside zone number 2. Mustafa right there along the bumper, making a dive. Pulling out of the angle just a little bit. Get around that inside clip. Staying in the pocket. Final dive into the last outside zone. There they go across that finish line. Could go either way here. Mustafa is on the left. Cameron Mustard is on the right. Both brand new cars and chassis for these drivers. They're battling it out here in the top 32. Will we see him go one more time? Do we have a victory or victor? We have a few victors.
A few victors, yes. I tend to mess them up every time to time.
No, we do. Cameron Mustard takes the win over Mustafa. Unanimous victory. We'll see him in the top 16. He'll have the winner of our next battle coming up.
The next battle under the tower. But first, congratulations to Cameron Mustard to move on into the top 16. The next battle under the tower. Brandon Patrick in the lead lane up against Braden Swan. Brandon Patrick in the lead. Braden Swan in the chase. The lights go on and off they go. Their top 32 battle initiating in. Looking good for Brandon Patrick out front. Braden Swan trying to dive down onto that door as they come through outer zone 2. Now into outer zone 3. Braden Swan doing a good job through the Manji section. Transitioning along the bumper as they come through the next inside clip up the hill. Braden Swan applying the pressure now into that final outer zone. And they cross that line.
And here we go with that replay. Taking a second look. Brandon Patrick out front. Braden Swan giving chase. B4 versus 370. Fantastic line through turn number 1 from Brandon Patrick out front. Braden doing a good job in that chase position as well. Going for a dive here for inside clip number 2. Doesn't quite really man, but is bumper to bumper through the final transition and right there along that door, crossing that finish line.
Well, now back around under the start gate. Braden Swan now in the lead position. Ready to chase him down. Brandon Patrick. One moves on to see Cameron Mustard in the top 16. The lights go on and off they go for the second half of their battle. Long run up here as they initiate in. Looking good for Braden Swan out front. Brandon Patrick trying to get on that door early. Manages to just leave enough room on the second transition into the Manji section. Maybe loses just a little bit of speed coming through that inside clip. Now tries to make up for it into the final outer zone. Gets alongside the door, but still loses a bit of speed. Braden Swan out front really going for it.
Yeah, let's go back to the replay here. Braden leading Brandon through the course here. Brandon going after it, but it doesn't quite pay off. Until there, that inside clip still sacrificing a little bit of angle there, and then a little bit of contact before that first transition right along the bumper, and a big dive from Brandon Patrick in that chase position does knock that inside clip number 2 down. There they go around that last and final outside zone. Scrappy battle between these two. Brandon Patrick is on the left, Braden Swan on the right. Or will we see them go one more time? A little bit of back and forth between these two. Winner will face Cameron Mustard in the top 16. Looks like we have a decision. Chris goes right for Braden Swan. We have a one more time in the middle from Ed. Carl goes right for Braden Swan. Braden Swan gets the win over Brennan Patrick in a split call. We'll see him in the top 16 against Cameron Mustard.
So Braden Swan advancing on into the top 16. Now on to our next top 32 battle. Top 32 is quickly coming to an end. Darius Ostraka qualifying 6 slots into that lead lane. Oliver Eppinger in the chase, qualifying 27th this round. Ready to do battle. In the top 32, the lights go on, and off they go. Lighting up the tires, going into outer zone 1, a big dive there from the chase of Oliver Eppinger, getting right on the door of Darius Ostraka as they come through the Manji section now after leaving outer zone 2, through 3 and 4 into the hill. Maybe a little tap there from the chase as they transition up the hill and into that final out wall ride. Good proximity left behind there from Oliver Eppinger as they cross the line.
Yeah, here we go with that replay. Darius Ostraka out front. Oliver Eppinger going after it through that initiation. Right along the pocket, falls back as he needs to do for that first and second transition in the Manji section of the course around that inside clip, getting pushed a little bit. And there we see what looks to be a little bit of a checkup before that final transition, but Oliver doing a good job to deal with it and keep things going.
Well, now time for the second half of this battle. Oliver Eppinger now in the lead. Darius Ostraka ready to chase him down. The lights go on. Only one advances on. 2 spots remaining in the top 16. Initiating in, Oliver Eppinger looking good off the initiation. Darius Ostraka trying to get up on him as they come through outer zone 2. Transitioning along the bumper through outer zone 3 and 4. Oliver Eppinger really laying down a good lead run here, but now on the attack. Darius Ostraka was right on the door. Lost a bit of ground, got it back though right before the finish line.
Wow, good battle between these two. Let's take a second look here. Oliver now out front, second half of their battle here in the top 32, bumper to bumper before initiating. Darius trying to really man and stay with Oliver out front through turn number 1. Goes for a little dive here around inside clip number 2. Out to that floating outside zone. Nicely done from Oliver. Great transition to finish things off as well. They cross the finish line door to door. And we go to our judges. Darius on the left, Oliver on the right. It looks like a quick decision. They're going right for Oliver Eppinger, getting the win over Darius Ostraka. We'll see him in the top 16. Next up, the RTR battle between Brett Wolford and Alan Hines.
Oliver Eppinger takes one of the 2 spots remaining in the top 16, and now I almost feel like we saved a cool one for the last battle here. Probably a position as a team owner you don't want to be in. 2 of your team cars up against each other in the top 32. Brett Wolford in the lead lane. Alan Hines ready to chase him down. Brett qualifying 11th. Alan Hines qualifying 22nd. Initiating into outer zone 1. Looking good for Brett Wolford. Alan Hines right there with them as they come through that inside clip down to outer zone 2, maybe a little deeper through outer zone 2, could have been the lead. They make the transition through the Manji section, back on the door goes Alan Hines to Brett Wolford. Wolford doing a good job out front here to keep that car right where it needs to be as they cross that finish line side by side.
Yeah, what a way to start this RTR battle. Brett Wolford out front, Alan Hines. Boss Alan Hines in that chase position, almost making some contact before that initiation bumper to bumper. Alan quickly getting into the pocket of his teammate out front. Through that Manji section of the course, Brett, perfect on that outside zone and inside clip. Next one as well, making himself easy to chase as always. Alan taking advantage. There they go across that finish line door to door, and we flip them around for the second half.
And they are flipped around and ready for the second half. Alan Hines now in the lead lane. Brett Wolford ready to chase him down. This is the final battle of the top 32 before we go into our top 16 in just a little bit. Initiating it, Alan Hines out front. Brett Wolford slowly reeling them in down the hill as they come through that inside clip into outer zone 2, not leaving enough room for the transition. You see the little tap against Brett Wolford's front fender as Alan Hines tried to get it into outer zone 4. Coming up the hill now though, Brett Wolford recovers, gets into the pocket, gets onto the door, and finishes out side by side with boss man Alan Hines.
Yeah, unfortunate to see that little bit of contact there just before the first transition. Brett could have been a little bit closer here, but he gives that car a little clutch kick and reels Alan in quickly, filling outside zone number 2, and there we see just that tiny little bit of contact. Really doesn't affect Alan Hines out front, but definitely affects Brett there in that chase position. Last and final transition, Brett reeling him back in. There they go across that finish line door to door, and we'll go to our judges. Brett is on the left, Alan on the right. And there it is, Alan getting the win over Brett Wolford. Fantastic battle there in the top 32. Alan will move on to face Oliver Eppinger. We'll take a look at the completed top 32 bracket before we take a break and head into top 16. So, Juanan getting the win, and he'll face off against Ernestas Yakubis, Augusto Ferreira, and Abdulrahman Al-Shetwi, Lukasz Pasquini, and Daniel Andreev, Reese Tatterson and Steven Hatcher, Zach O'Sullivan and Nick Hang, Tikon Puleski, and Liam Akihiko, Cameron Mustard and Braden Swan, Oliver Eppinger, and Alan Hines, all coming up next. But again, we'll take a short break for our sponsors and be right back with that top 16. Don't go anywhere. All right, and we are back for round one here at Anglesey Circuit. We are now into our top 16. We'll take a look at that bracket coming up next. Juan and Ernestes to start things off in the top 16. Augusto Ferreira and Abdulrahman Al-Shetbi will be next. Lukas Pasquini and Daniel Andriev. Then Reese Statterson and Steven Hatcher. All here in this first group for the top 16. Drivers just getting their last little bit of practice runs in before we send them off. I believe we're even missing our start light, so if you're new to the series, you'll get to see how that start light works. There it is. There's Chris. Going out to the line.
I feel like we need to program in a R2D2 like scream noise when he does that. Well, as Ernestes Yakulibis slots into that lead lane, we are now into the top 16 here for round one of the Virtual Drift Championship. Chasing him down, well, that's going to be the newcomer, Juanin. Came all the way from the last 16 battles, won his battle in the top 32. Now he's here in the top 16. Let's see what happens here. Initiating in, Ernestes Yakulibis, really aggressive on the initiation. Juanin doing a great job in that chase. Just stick right with them as they come through the Manji section now. Lots of speed from both these drivers. They come up the hill through that floating outer zone. Juanin leaving no room for error on these transitions as he gets right up on the door as they cross the line.
Yeah, good job. Great way to start out top 16. Let's take a second look. Ernestes out front. Juanin giving chase. And that M2 getting right up on the bumper, but initiates a little bit late there in that chase position. Following him through outside zone number 2. Now 3. Down into 4. Ernestes staying off that rumble strip as the judges have requested. Filling that next outside zone. Great final transition. Juanin and taking advantage, getting up onto the door. And we'll go back to that start gate.
Back at the start gate, indeed, and under it, Juanin now slotted into that lead lane. Ernestes Yakulibis ready to chase him down. The lights go on, the second half of the battle underway through the start gate, nice and clean. Almost onto the grass there for Juanin as they initiate in. Ernestes trying to get right up on the door off of Outer Zone 1, and he manages to do so, coming into Outer Zone 2, still door to door. Now through the Manji section, leaving no room for error. Ernestes sends it out of outer zone 4, right along the door of Juanan as they come into the final outer zone. Now a little love tap there from Ernestus in that chase as they cross the finish line.
Yeah, just a little bit of contact crossing that finish line. Let's take a second look. Juanan out front, Ernestus giving chase, and Ernestus door to door before they even initiate, following him through turn number 1, maybe getting pushed a little bit, is Juanan out front. Fantastic transition, almost doesn't make it work. Is Ernestus in that chase position, a little slow to rotate, and then a last final dive there. My goodness, let's go to our judges. Juanan on the left, Ernestus on the right. Ernestus looking like he wants it. Into the top 8. He'll face the winner of Augusto Ferreira and Abdulrahman Al Shetwi. If he gets the win, could be Juanan. Qualifying 32nd, battling his way through the last 16 and getting the win over number 1 qualifier Vitaly Isov, but it's not. It's going to be Ernestus Yakubis getting the win. We'll see him in the top 8.
Well, for their first showing in the Virtual Drift Championship, a big GG to Juanan. Making your way that far on your first round, that is very impressive. Ernestus, and congratulations to Ernestus Yakulibis for moving on to that top 8. Now, next battle under the gate, Augusto Ferreira in the R34 in the lead lane up against Abdulrahman Al Shetwi in the chase. Lights go on, and the next top 16 battles underway. Augusto initiates in. Good initiation through outer zone 1. Abdulrahman dives down to try and get on that door off the initiation. Through outer zone 2 they come. Transitioning into the Manji section along each other's bumpers through outer zone 4. Now the drive up the hill. Stay on it through that floating outer zone and into the final wall ride. Abdulrahman sticking right with Augusto through that whole run.
Yeah, and here we go with that replay. Augusto out front, Abdulrahman going after it in that chase position, getting up into the pocket early in turn number 1. Does sacrifice some line, getting up on that rumble strip, bumper to bumper through both of those transitions. Augusto driving in a little bit early for inside clip number 2. Abdulrahman dealing with it. Right back onto the door after that final transition. There they go across that finish line, and we flip them around.
Well, back under the start gate, Abdulrahman Al Shetwi now in the lead lane. Augusto Ferreira ready to chase him down. Lights go on in the second half of this battle is underway. Who will go see Ernestus Yakulibis in the top 8, initiating in. Looking good for Abdulrahman. Lots of a big gap there out of outer zone 1, but quickly Augusto gets that proximity back as they come through the Manji section. Now Augusto on the attack, and it hits the front end of Abdulrahman, but it doesn't send him offline quite a lot, but still a lot as they finish out their run.
Yeah, kind of showing a good example of why we don't have that zone all the way out there to that track edge. Let's take a second look. Abdulrahman filling outside zone number 1. Augusto reeling him in like a rocket ship through turn number 1, but has to back off around that flip on the inside. Here we go around that inside number 2, and there's that little bump and sends Abdulrahman to the outside, and then having to make an awkward transition all the way across that track. And Augusto on the left, Abdulrahman on the right for our judges. Winner moves on to face Ernestus in the top 8. And it looks like we do have a decision. And one more time from Chris. Ed goes right, Carl goes left. We're gonna line them back up.
So the first one more time called in the top 16. A call I could agree with. Like to see these two kind of clean up their runs, make it a little bit better. And let's see what they can do here in the one more time to get a deciding victor to move into the top 8. Augusto Ferreira slots back into the lead lane of Jeweler Manal-Shetwi, chasing him down for the one more time battle. The lights go on and off they go. Down the straight, initiating in. Looking good off the initiation for Augusto. Another dive there from Abdulrahman to try and get right up to the door, but he ends up touching Augusto going into outer zone 2, and this is going to throw him off the whole way through the Manji section. More contact coming out of outer zone 4. Now Augusto's going to try to hold it together. Abdulrahman sticking right on the door, but that early contact really upset his run.
Let's take another look here. Augusto out front in the one more time battle, bumper to bumper before initiating, but doesn't quite pay off for Abdulrahman, having to make some corrections through turn number 1, get it settled in, but makes a dive there, some contact in that chase position along Augusto. Final transition there, and almost some more contact before crossing that finish line, and again we flip them around for the second half of their one more time battle.
And flipped around indeed. Jeweler Manal-Shetwi now in that lead lane. Augusto Ferreira ready to chase him down. Only one can go to see Ernestus Yakulibis in the top 8. We'll see if we have a decider after this battle. Lights go on and off they go, initiating in Abdulrahman through outer zone 1. Augusto playing it back just a little bit, losing a bit of ground, but not really doing a lot to really catch up here. Maybe playing it safe in that chase position as Abdulrahman does a good job out front here in his lead. And a little wall tap there just before the end. Augusto, yeah, like I said, just looked like he was maybe playing it safe on that run.
Yeah, maybe playing it safe indeed. We did have a little bit of wall contact, and now we pulling out quite a bit of angle before crossing that finish line. We're taking another look at it here, a little tight to the inside clip. Could have been wider for outside zone number 2. Was good on 3, good on 4 as well, while Augusto, again, playing it a little safe back there. Filling that next outside zone and a big transition across, tapping that wall. And we'll go to our judges here for the second time between these two. Again, one more time battle. You're just now joining us. Augusto on the left, Abdulrahman on the right. Yep, judges even giving the heads up to the drivers that they're double checking the runs. We'll let them take their time on the call. Going back and looking at the contact that was made in the first half of that battle. And there it is. Unanimous decision. Augusto Ferreira gets the win. Double checking on the contact, and they again go left for Augusto. We'll see him in the top 8 against Ernestas Yakubis. But up next, Lukasz Pasquini and Daniel Andreev.
That is right, and a GG there to Augusto Ferreira making his way into the top 8, and our next battle already at the line. They look like they're ready to go. Daniel Andreev in that lead lane up against Lukasz Pasquini, making his way all the way from the last 16 battles. Another driver from the last 16 battles here in the top 16, initiating in, and the aggression already shown off that initiation, sticking right with Daniel through outer zone 1, down towards outer zone 2, bumper to bumper through the Manji section, back on the door as they come through that inside clip and back up the hill, now onto the wall run. A little bit of gap given, but then quickly gained back from that chase as they finish out the run side by side.
Yeah, they sure do. Let's take a second look. Daniel out front, Lucas giving chase. Pasquini right along the bumper before that initiation and right into the pocket early around that inside clip. Could have been a little bit deeper on outside zone number 2. Great on 3 and 4 is Daniel Andreev out front around that inside clip. Nicely, Lukasz doing a good job in that chase position as well, reeling him back in before crossing that finish line. My goodness, clean start to this battle.
A very clean start, and now we get to see the second half of this battle. Lukasz Pasquini in the lead lane now, up against Daniel Andreev in the chase. Lights go on and the second half is underway. Who's going to take another spot here in the top 8? Initiating in, Lukasz out front looking good. Daniel right there with them as they come down the hill towards outer zone 2. Looking good for the lead so far, transitioning along the bumpers. Daniel leaving no room for error there on those transitions. They come through the inside clip up the hill. Leave just enough room for the final transition. Back on the door. Daniel Andreev in that chase. Wow.
Yeah, fantastic job. Let's take another look. Lukasz out front leading Daniel Andreev through the course here. And Daniel right along the bumper as well, quickly into the pocket. Sacrifice a little bit of angle, but he is matching it there. Heading down into outside zone number 2. Now 3. Daniel right along the bumper through that next transition. Matching the angle nicely for turn 2 around that inside clip number 2. Final transition. Pops out of the smoke and onto the door is Daniel Andreev. Again, super clean from these two here in the top 16. We go to our judges. Lukasz on the left, Daniel on the right. And a quick decision. Daniel Andreev getting the win over Lukasz. Again, super clean battle and super good job by Lukasz Pasquini.
Very good job indeed from Lukasz there, making his way again this far into the top 16 on the first round. A very good job. But now, we know the track was originally used in 2019, but man, this battle's starting to scream 2019 to me. We have Steven Hatcher up against Reese Tatterson. Steven Hatcher in the lead lane. Reese Tatterson right beside him in the chase, in that RTR Mustang, ready to go. Steven Hatcher in the new chassis of that S chassis. They initiate into outer zone 1, looking good. Reese Tatterson on the attack, though, as he gets right up on the door. That Mustang looks almost double the size of the S chassis when you see him side by side, but they leaves a lot of room through the Manji section there as they come back up the hill. Leaves just enough room for the final transition, but into the wall goes Hatcher, and he just buries the throttle to try and save the run.
Yeah, let's take another look at it. Steven Hatcher getting into the wall at the very end. Reese going after a dive in turn number 1. Getting up on the rumble strip just a little bit in that chase position. Bumper to bumper through the transitions. A little bit of lag there from Reese, I think, as well. And getting outside at zone number 5. Filling that next one. There's Steven, final transition, getting into the wall and barely staying in drift before crossing that finish line.
Well, let's see what happens here on run number 2. Reese Tatterson now in the lead lane. Steven Hatcher ready to chase him down. They wait for the lights to ignite, and there they go. The second half of this battle now underway. Down the straight, initiating in, Reese Satterson. Right with him, though, is Stephen Hatcher, taking a while to match the angle, but then gets there through outer zone 2. Now into the Manji section, outer zone 3 and 4. Lots of angle being poured on by that RTR Mustang, but right on the door is Stephen Hatcher. Hasn't left any breathing room for someone he's driven with for a long time, and gives him that little tap there right at the end.
An insanely long time. Let's take a second look at it. Reese Tatterson out front now in that RTR Mustang, and a big dive from Steven, but doesn't ever get to the same angle in that chase position. All the way through the Manji section here. Big dive again in that chase position, but just can't quite get that car to that same angle as that Mustang out front. And there's a big contact right as they cross that finish line. We'll go to our judges. Reese Tatterson on the left, Stephen Hatcher on the right. Two of our longest veterans in the Virtual Drift Championship. Stephen Hatcher, season 1. I believe Reese came in season 2. Been here since 2018 and 2016. The start. Might like Steven growing up in the Virtual Drift Championship, and there it is. So one more time, we're actually gonna line them back up.
Well, I'm not going to be mad at that call. I always want to see these two go at it. So back around at the start gate. Stephen Hatcher now slots back into that lead lane. Reese Tatterson ready to chase him down for the one more time battle here in the top 16. The lights go on, and the one more time battle is underway. Stephen Hatcher initiates out front, not clearing all of outer zone 1, and a tap, a big hit from Reese Tatterson out in that chase. But it doesn't upset Stephen Hatcher in the lead as they come through that inside clip and drive it up towards that floating outer zone. Almost not leaving enough room for the transition was Reese Tatterson in that chase. Oh, a sloppy first run here.
Yeah, I'm not so sure they improved on the one more time here. Let's take another look at it. Reese going after a humongous dive in that chase position, getting into the door of Stephen Hatcher. They continue on like it didn't even happen. Down into that next outside zone, around the inside clip, a little bit wide, but a really good line into that next floating box there. Good transition to finish it out, but goes just a tiny bit too wide. Can't get that car to drive forward and off the wall.
Well, let's see what happens in the second half of this battle. Reese Tatterson now in the lead. Stephen Hatcher ready to chase him down. Lights go on down the straight, initiating in, looking good for Reese Tatterson off that initiation. Quickly getting to his door, though, is Stephen Hatcher, and he's sticking right with him as they come into the Manji section. Now into that inside clip. Stephen Hatcher glued to the door of that RTR Mustang. There's a lot of angles thrown into that outer zone as they cross the line side by side.
Yeah, let's take a second look at it here. Second half of the one more time battle between these two. Reese now out front. Steven right along the bumper before initiating, but again, doesn't quite match the angle through turn number 1. Same through the Manji section here. Really pouring on the angle. Trying to stay with Reese, though. Cuts it again. To do so, last and final transition, Reese right along the wall, and there they go across that finish line. We go to our judges. Reese Tatterson on the left, Stephen Hatcher on the right. Winner will move on into the top 8 to face Daniel Andreev. They're just really taking a look at these runs, making sure they're getting the call correctly before moving on to our next battle. Next up will be Zach O'Sullivan and Nick Hang going to the top right hand corner of the bracket. It does sound like we have a decision. Which way are they going to go? Left for Reese Tatterson or right for Steven Hatcher? We have it one more time from Carl. Chris and Ed go right for Steven Hatcher, and Steven Hatcher gets the win.
Steven Hatcher moving on to see Daniel Andreev in the top 8. That S chassis change he made, well, it seems to be working for him, so he's got to be feeling good as we get ready for our next set of battles on the right hand side of the bracket.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to the top right first, Zach O'Sullivan and Nick Hang, Tikon Pileski and Liam Akihiko, Cameron Mustard and Braden Swan, Oliver Eppinger and Alan Hines all up next.
So coming up to the line now and qualifying second today, making his way through the top 32, now here in the top 16, previous VDC champion Zach O'Sullivan in the lead lane. Beside him, Nick Hang in that Ford Sierra. Nick Hang qualifying 15th today, making his way through the 32, now here together in the top 16. Only one advances on. The lights go out and the battle's underway, initiating in, looking good for Zach O'Sullivan. Right with him though, Nick Hang held it to the last second, then initiated right beside him as they come through outer zone 2, now into the Manji section, transitioning alongside the bumpers. They come up the hill now. Nick Hang sticking to the door of Zach O'Sullivan's E36. Zach putting down a wicked lead run, though, for Nick to follow.
Yeah, let's take another look here. Zach O'Sullivan out front. Nick Hang in that chase position and taking advantage of the very clean run out in front of him by Zach O'Sullivan. Nice and tight to the inside clip. Great on the outside zone number 2, 3, and now down into 4, staying off that rumble strip, picking up throttle when he needs to around that inside clip. Nick Hang staying right there with him, backing off for that final transition, gets right back into the door for that final outside zone.
Well, back at the start gate, Nick Hang now in the lead lane. Zach O'Sullivan ready to chase him down. One advances on, the other doesn't. The lights go on and off they go. Initiating in, looking good off the initiation on the attack. Zach O'Sullivan matching that angle through outer zone 1 down towards outer zone 2. Nick Hang filling all of outer zone 2 as they come into that Manji section and they transition along each other's bumpers through the inside clip up the hill. Zach O'Sullivan on the attack, leaving almost no room for error, but doing so very gracefully.
Yeah, and here we go with that replay. Nick Hang now out front, second half of their top 16 battle here. Initiating in. Zach quickly getting onto the door, matching angle, matching line pretty close as well. A little bit on the inside. Drops back for these transitions. Gets right back into the door for inside clip number 2 and around it. Nick Hang, very clean lead run out front as well. Filling that last and final outside zone. Zach right there with him, crossing that finish line. Do we have a winner between these two? Zach O'Sullivan on the left, Nick Hang on the right, or will they line up one more time? And there they go. They are sliding left for Zach O'Sullivan. Unanimous victory over Nick Hang. We'll see him in the top 8.
We definitely will. Now, who will Zach O'Sullivan see as his battle partner in the top 8? Will it be Tikon Plesky in the lead lane, or will it be Liam Akihiko chasing down Tikon Plesky in this top 16 battle? Liam, the newcomer to VDC this year. Tikon, one of the veterans. New school versus old school. Initiating in. Looking good off the initiation for Tikon Plesky. Playing it a little safe as Liam Akihiko in that chase. They fill outer zone 2. Now start making the transitions along the bumpers. I'm amazed they got away with that as they leave outer zone 4 and start driving up the hill. Liam right there on the door of Tikon Plesky. Leaves a lot of room for the transition, but regains that proximity before the finish line.
Yeah, and here goes that replay. Tikon out front. Smooth initiation, filling outside zone number 1. Good angle heading down the hill. Liam trying to reel him in. Leaving a little room on the table, especially against Tikon, but not there. That second transition of the course, reeling him back in for inside clip number 2. Grabbing that floating outside zone. Tikon throws it along the wall. And Liam takes advantage and gets back onto the door.
Well, after Tikon Plesky went for a venture the wrong way down the track, he found his way back to the start gate. Now Liam Akihiko in the lead lane. Tikon Plesky ready to chase him down. The second half of this battle to see who will go see Zach O'Sullivan in the top 8. The lights go on. The second half of the battle's underway. The long run up. Then initiation in. Looking good for Akihiko out front. Plesky right there on the door off of the initiation as they come into the Manji section now. Plesky leaving enough room there for the transitions, the drive up the hill. He's right on the door. Tikon leaving no room for error as they come into that final outer zone. And what a clean run between these two.
Yeah, great battle. Let's take a second look. The second half of the battle. Liam, even Massive angle going up onto that rumble strip just a little bit. Rumbles are super slippery here. Econ making a big dive in that chase position around that inside clip. Liam out to that floating outside zone. Great transition to finalize things off across that finish line. Econ applying some pressure. We go to our judges. Econ on the left. Liam Akihiko on the right. Winner will move on to face Zach O'Sullivan in the top 8. Econ qualifying 7th, Liam qualifying 10th, and we do have a unanimous victory for Ticon Pileski, and we'll see Zach and Ticon face off in the top 8.
Ticon Pileski getting that win over Zach O'Sullivan. And now, the next battle up. Cameron Mustard versus Braden Swan. 2 spots remain. 2 sets of battles to go for the top 16. Braden Swan qualifying 19th. Cameron Mustard qualifying 30th. Now that they're slotted into their proper boxes, Braden Swan in the lead. Cameron Mustard will be chasing him down. The lights go on and this battle's underway. Initiating in, looking good off the initiation. A big dive there from Cameron Mustard. Thought he was going to drive right to Braden Swan, but he stays out of it and stays out of hitting him as they come through the Manji section now to on each other's bumpers. Coming up the hill, Cameron Mustard is throwing the aggression here at Braden Swan, really trying to put it on the door, maybe even pushing him across that finish line.
Yeah, Cameron looking pretty comfortable in the new chassis. Braden returning back in that 370Z and looking good as well. Let's take a second look. Initiating in, filling outside zone number 1. Big dive from Cameron Mustard offline, but gets back into it a little bit. Doesn't quite fill the outside zone 2 down there at the bottom of the hill. Staying with Braden now. The second half of the course. Good dive here to finish things out. Yeah, maybe making a little bit of contact there. Hard to tell.
Well, now here we go with the second half of the battle. Cameron Mustard now in the lead lane. Braden Swan, in the chase, ready to go. Lights go on in the second half of this battle is underway. Initiating in, Cameron Mustard with a huge lead up to the initiation, but Braden Swan does manage to regain that proximity, not filling all of outer zone 2 was our lead, but not enough to upset Braden Swan in that chase position coming up through the hill now. Braden Swan again showing that aggression as well, getting right up on the door in that final outer zone and crossing the line.
Yeah, good job by both. Let's take a second look. Cameron Mustard leading Braden and getting out ahead up that hill. Braden reeling him in by inside clip number 2. A little bit better on that line in that chase position as well. Just maybe not proximity until around about there for that inside clip number 2. Last and final transition here. Cameron throwing along that wall. Braden taking advantage, putting it on the door. And we go to our judges. Cameron Mustard on the left, Braden Swan on the right. And a quick decision. Braden Swan gets the win over Cameron Mustard. We'll see Braden in the top 8.
Good job to Braden Swan getting that win over Cameron Mustard. Now we decide who will see him in the top 8. Will it be the man who just moved into that lead lane, the Team RTR team Heinze, Alan Hines himself, or will it be Oliver Eppinger in that chase lane in that Toyota Supra? The lights go on and the battle's underway. The last battle here of the top 16. Initiating in, looking good for Alan Hines. Oliver Eppinger matching that angle beautifully down the hill towards outer zone 2. Now the transition into the Manji section. Through outer zone 3 and 4, Oliver Eppinger surges, touches the door of Alan Hines. As they come up the hill, it puts him offline just a little bit, but not enough to upset him as they come door to door across that finish line.
Yeah, applying some pressure in that chase position. Allen throwing down a heater out front. Let's take a second look. Allen initiating in, filling outside zone number 1. Oliver going after the door of that RTR. Allen filling outside zone number 2, 3, and now 4. Right along that track edge, staying off that rumble strip around the inside clip. But that super of Oliver Eppinger is right there. That's a final dive before crossing that finish line. Nice and clean.
Well, now back around at the start light. Oliver Eppinger now in the lead. Alan Hines ready to chase him down for the second half of this battle to go to find out who is going to see Braden Swan in that top 8. The lights ignite and off they go for the second half of their battle. Oliver Eppinger initiates in. Alan Hines initiates behind him through outer zone 1, slowly getting to that door as they get through outer zone 2. Now into the Manji section. Transitioning along each other's bumpers through that inside clip and up the hill. Almost not leaving enough room for that final transition was Alan Hines, and maybe a little tap there into Oliver Eppinger right at the finish line.
Yeah, I think so. Let's take a second look. Oliver Eppinger out front, initiating in, snaps the angle quickly. Allen does a good job in that chase position. Bumper to bumper through both of those transitions. Oliver using all of the course there around that inside clip. Allen following him along here. Last and final transition. A little bit of contact there before crossing that finish line. And we go to our judges. Oliver Eppinger on the left, Alan Hines on the right. Winner moves on into the top 8, and it looks like we have a quick decision. Alan Hines does move ahead into the top 8 to face Braden Swan. We take a look at our bracket as the top 16 is completed. Ernestas Yakulis and Augusto Ferreira will face off in the top 8. Daniel Andreev and Steven Hatcher, Zach O'Sullivan and Tikon Pileski, Braden Swan and Alan Hines. We'll take a look at that top 8 bracket for you there. Take your screenshots if you need to. Take pictures. If you'd like to follow along. Alright, drivers just getting a couple of runs in, making sure their equipment is working. Maybe shake out some jitters before we bring that next battle to the line. Again, Ernestas and Augusto Ferreira up next.
Well, here we go. Into the top 8. Augusto Ferreira in the lead lane up against Ernestas Yakulibis, chasing him down for run number 1 here. Round 1's quickly coming to an end. We're already in the top 8. They get the light and initiate in. Looking good for Augusto. Ernestas being super aggressive off that initiation down the hill to get right on the door through outer zone 1 in that first inside clip through the Manji section. Ernestas leaving no room on that transitions along the bumper. Now they come up the hill. One last transition, one last wall ride. And right on the door is Ernestus, but a good lead run from Augusto out front as well.
Yeah, here we go with that replay. Augusto out front here in the top 8, leading Ernestas through the course, and Ernestas going for the side-by-side initiation. Doesn't quite pay off. He's quite offline, making some surges there in that chase position. Good proximity, but yeah, not so clean. He's clean there though, but Augusto drives in a little bit early for the inside clip number 2. Ernestas following him along. Last and final dive here for the final outside zone and across that finish line.
Well, back around at the start gate and ready to duke it out for the second half of their battle. Ernestus Yakulibis in the lead lane. Augusto Ferreira ready to chase him down. Only one can advance on. Initiating in. Looking good for Ernestus. Augusto surging up to that door and then having to back out of it as they come through outer zone 2. Now the transition into the Manji section. Augusto leaving quite a bit of room there and then surging back up onto the door through that inside clip. Now up the hill, one last transition, one last wall ride, losing a bit more of ground. We'll see what the judges call on this one.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Ernestas out front here leading Augusto. Augusto going after it through the initiation. Does make a giant surge there, but I think much cleaner in that chase position. Ernestas doing good out front as well. Down into that next outside zone. Massive dive from Augusto. It pays off. He sticks it to the door of that lead car. Last and final transition into that wall ride, crossing that finish line. And we go to our judges for the first time here in the top 8. Ernestas on the left, Augusto on the right. And it looks like we do have a decision. Ernestas getting the win over Augusto Ferreira and moves on into the top 4.
Well, a good run from Augusto Ferreira, but getting knocked out by Ernestus Yakulibis, who will move on into that top 4 as we move on to our next battle. Steven Hatcher, back to form in the lead lane up against Daniel Andreev. Who will go to see Ernestus Yakulibis. The lights go out and off they go for their battle. Out front, Steven Hatcher, Daniel right on the door, but tapping Steven Hatcher as they head down towards outer zone 2. Now through the Manji section, they come out of it and up the hill. Daniel Andreev right there on the door to Steven Hatcher. Leaves a bit more room that time on the transition into the final outer zone. Still finishes alongside the door. What a fun start.
Yeah, and here we go with that replay. Steven initiating in with Daniel right there in tow. Maybe a little bit of contact there, sending Steven a little bit wide of inside clip number 1. Could have been deeper on outside 3, deep on 4 though. Around the inside clip, a little bit wide is Steven Hatcher. Daniel right there in that chase position along the bumper for the final transition, right along that wall and crossing the finish line.
Well, now back around at the start gate, Daniel Andreev now in the lead lane. Steven Hatcher ready to chase him down for the second half of the battle to see who will be up against Ernestus. One advances on, one ends his day early. Daniel Andreev gets out of the start gate, initiates in. Steven Hatcher throws it in through outer zone 1 right there along the doors. They come through that inside clip. A little bit of contact as they come into outer zone 2. Puts Daniel Andreev one tire off, but they stay on it through the Manji section. Steven right there on the door of Daniel Andreev. They transition for the final time, and look at it, Steven Hatcher right on the door through that finish line.
Yeah, staying aggressive all the way until the end. Daniel Andreev out front here on the replay. Steven along the bumper, before initiating in. Right there in the pocket, maybe some contact there heading into outside zone number 3, sending Daniel just a tad bit wide. Nice on that next outside zone around the inside clip. Steven applying some pressure, staying with him. Last and final transition, reels him in quickly and pushes him across that finish line. We'll go to our judges here. Daniel Andreev on the left, Steven Hatcher on the right. Winner moving on into the top 4 to face Ernestes. That track will be released today after the competition. Gotta double check everything and go over it all before I throw it out there to the public and on to our servers. I'm not so sure if we're referring to the tire drop in outside zone number 2 by Daniel. Might have been caused by Steven. A little bit of contact there, I believe, happened right after that inside clip number 1. Hard to tell. I'm sure judges are going over replays, checking out those 2 runs. And that is correct. Yep, we are updated to 6.0 physics at this point and working on an update to our public cars. Yeah, tough to say because I believe there was very similar contact on the reverse of that, sending Steven a little bit wide of inside clip number 1. Oh, look, and there it is. So we have a one more time by Chris and Carl. Ed goes left for Daniel Andreev, but we're going to bring him back under that starting gate and send him again.
Well, Steven Hatcher, not having the easiest run of it. Every battle so far has been a one more time with him. We'll see what happens here as we wait for them to come back around. Steven Hatcher's going to slot back into that lead lane. Daniel Andreev is going to chase him down for the start of this one more time battle. Who goes to see Ernestes Yakulibis? Only one of them can. They wait patiently for the lights to ignite, and here we go. The one more time battle underway. Steven out of the start gate. Daniel right there on the bumper, initiating in, looking good through outer zone 1. Daniel with crazy aggression off that first outer zone, down towards outer zone 2. Now into the Manji section, looking a lot cleaner this time around. Daniel Andreev sticking right to Steven Hatcher. He has great proximity, not quite on the door, but just right there as they cross that finish line.
Yeah, he indeed was right there. Let's take a second look. First half of the one more time battle here in top 8. Steven Hatcher leaving Daniel Andreev through this course, and almost some contact there right after initiation. Now Steven ends up on the inside just a little bit early, so not quite the perfect line there through turn number 1. Daniel doing a good job to deal with it around that second inside clip as well. Steven all the way out there to that box, and then filling the last and final outside zone and staying off the wall this time.
Let's see what happens here in run number 2. Daniel Andreev now in the lead. Steven Hatcher ready to chase him down. The lights go on and off they go. Initiating in, Daniel Andreev right with them though. Steven Hatcher getting right up on the door as they come through that inside clip through outer zone 2. Now leaving just enough room for the transitions on the Manji section as they come into that inside clip. Little bobbling around there from the chase as he tries to keep up with Daniel Andreev, as now the big surge onto the door. Woo, what a battle.
Yeah, I'm not so sure we have a victor. Let's take another look. Daniel Andreev leading Steven Hatcher. Second half of the one more time battle. Even getting up into the door quickly for inside clip number 1. Drops back just enough for that first transition to happen. Getting out of the way of that lead car. Daniel a little wide for inside clip number 2. Grabs that next box. Heading out to the wall. Steven sacrificing a little bit of line, but does push him across that finish line, and we go to our judges once more. Daniel Andreev on the left. Steven Hatcher on the right. Winner moves on into the top 4. And there it is, Daniel Andreev getting the win over Steven Hatcher in the one more time battle here in the top 8.
Well, Steven Hatcher getting knocked out in the top 8, but a good job from Daniel Andreev moving on forward. As we move on to our next battle of the top 8, the right side of the bracket, Zach O'Sullivan up against Tikhon Pileski. Oh, this could be a battle here. Two drivers that know each other very well, and we've seen many battles between these two. Zach O'Sullivan in the lead lane, Tikhon Pileski chasing him down, initiating it already. Pileski's right with them as they come through outer zone 1. Wheel to wheel, door to door, down to outer zone 2, leaving a lot of room for the transition into the Manji section as Tikhon sends it back up onto the door through outer zone 4. Now up through 5, up the hill, into the final wall ride. Look at that, Tikhon Pileski and Zach O'Sullivan side by side across the line.
Wow. Incredible start to this battle here in the top 8. Zach O'Sullivan getting chased down by Tikhon Pileski. Look at that, side-by-side initiation from Tikhon. Seen him do it in the past, really go after it, and somehow make it work. Big dive there in that chase position. Through that outside zone, around that inside clip. Zach, near perfect lead run out front, nice and smooth, making himself easy to chase down. There they go across that finish line.
Well, back around at the start gate, Tikhon Pileski now in the lead lane. Zach O'Sullivan ready to chase him down in that E36. They wait for the lights to ignite, and there we go. Second half of the battle underway. Who takes one of the 2 spots remaining in the top 4, initiating in, looking good for Tikhon Pileski. Zach O'Sullivan just sticking right there with them through outer zone 2. And now into the Manji section. Zach O'Sullivan with a good proximity throughout this whole course, mirroring the angle nicely as they come into that final outer zone. Zach makes that push, taps the front end of Tikhon Pileski's car before crossing the finish line.
Yeah, it might come down to this mistake on initiation here. Let's take another look. Tikhon throwing that car in, and yeah, Zach washed it a little bit wide. Doesn't quite get that car to angle as well. We do see a tiny little tire drop from Tikhon out front. Filling that next outside zone, a little wide of the inside clip. Zach now back into the fight. Final transition, dropping back and then reeling him back in, pushing him across that finish line. But is it enough? Zach O'Sullivan on the left here in our judges graphic, and Tikhon Pileski on the right. Winner moves on into the top 4. And it looks like we do have a decision, and it's a split call. They go left for Zach O'Sullivan, getting the win over Tikon Pileski, and we'll see him in the final four. Yeah, so here in the call there again, judges wanting drivers to stay off those rumble strips. They are extremely slippery here on this course. And Tikon initiating in on the rumbles, leading Zach onto the rumbles as well, leading to that washout.
Well, Zach O'Sullivan moving up. Zach O'Sullivan going to the top four, and now to see who will face Zach O'Sullivan. Not going to make his bracket easy because both these guys could end his day early. Braden Swan in the lead lane up against Alan Hines. Team Hines, the RTR Mustang in that chase. The lights go on, and the last battle of the top 8 is underway. Initiating in, looking good for Braden Swan. Alan Hines right there with him. Backing out of it down the hill, though, as they come into outer zone 2, into the Monty section through 3 and 4. Looking good, dropping a tire, though, was Braden Swan. And then it looks like maybe a little bit of contact from Alan Hines. They come up the hill into the final outer zone. Oh, all the momentum lost for the lead. And that has Alan Hines go into him.
Yeah, was it caused by the little bit of contact, or did Braden kind of park it there in that last and final outside zone? Take another look here. Alan being aggressive off that initiation doesn't quite work out for him. Braden also making some corrections out front as well. Could have led a few of those corrections from Alan around that next inside clip. A tiny bit wide, perfect on that floating box. Last and final transition. Yeah, very, very awkward there. He goes to throw the car in. It doesn't quite get to the angle he maybe wanted when he picked up throttle. It really maybe kind of fell on his face there.
Yeah, definitely a weird thing to have happen, especially this far into the competition. And especially when you're up against Alan Hines, nonetheless, our last year's VDC champion. But we'll see what happens in run number 2. Alan Hines now in the lead lane. Braden Swan ready to chase him down. Lights go on. Who goes to see Zach O'Sullivan? Initiating in, looking good for Alan Hines. Braden Swan gets right up on the door, down the hill into that first inside clip, and maybe pushing him through into outer zone 2 there as he throws on the angle into that inside clip. Alan Hines out front, still doing a good job. Braden Swan trying to get into that pocket, get onto the door. That'll be something for you to look at in that replay, is maybe a little bit of contact there in the Vanchi section.
Yeah, let's take a second look here. Alan Hines out front. Let's see, initiating in, filling outside zone 1 perfectly. No, I'm not so sure. Alan coming up a little bit short of outside zone number 2 as well. And then a big dive from Braden Swan in that chase position. Perfect line from Alan out front through that section of the course, picking up throttle for the last and final outside zone. There they go across that finish line. We go to our judges. Braden Swan on the left, Alan Hines on the right. Our last and final battle here in the top 8. And they are quickly moving right for Alan Hines. We'll see him in the top 4. Let's take a look at the bracket. Ernestes getting the win, and he'll face off against Daniel Andreev. Zach O'Sullivan also getting the win, and he's got Alan Hines up after facing off against Tikon Pileski. So we'll bring up that final 4 bracket. There it is. And take your screenshots if you'd like to follow along. Drivers are coming to the line now. Ernestes Yakubis and Daniel Andreev. Daniel will lead. You're qualifying 13th.
So here we go, the top 4 to the finals. Daniel Andreev in the lead lane. Ernestis Yakulibis on form today in that S15. Ready to battle it out. We wait for the light to ignite, that this top 4 battle can get underway. There it goes. The light goes on, and we're off for the top 4. Initiating in, looking good off the initiation. Maybe even like a weird contact there from Ernestus, but maybe not. It was just how fast they snapped angle off the initiation. Now through the Manji section, Ernestus is applying the pressure onto Daniel Andreev, not leaving that door as they come up the hill in that final outer zone. And there's the big push from Ernestus in that chase.
Oh my goodness gracious. That might have been the closest chase we've seen today. A little bit of a late camera change. My fault there on this this replay and during the live. And there they go, initiating in. Daniel Andreev, perfect through turn number 1, grabbing that next outside zone. But look at there, bumper to bumper through those transitions. Back onto the door quickly is Ernestus, staying with him through turn number 2 around inside clip. And the last and final dive, almost pushing him across the line. My goodness.
We're in for a treat here for round 1 of the Virtual Drift Championships, as now Ernestus Yakulibis is in the lead lane. Daniel Andreev ready to chase him down. The lights go on in the second half, and the battle is underway. Who moves to the finals? Who goes to the third place matchup as they initiate in? Daniel Andreev right on the door through Outer Zone 1. Down the hill into Outer Zone 2, now for the Manji section. Outer Zone 3 and 4, Daniel transitioning along that bumper, but quickly back onto the door of Ernestus. They come up the hill. One last transition right along the bumper, right back onto the door. Daniel Andreev bringing it to Ernestus Yakulibis.
And here we go with the replay, second half of their top 4 battle. Ernestus out front this time. Daniel right along the bumper and into the door after they initiate. Staying with him through turn number 1. Could have been a little bit deeper on outside 2. Grabs 3. Down into 4. Daniel making a dive there. Driving in a little bit too soon as Ernestus out front. Getting around that inside clip though. Final transition and Daniel puts it onto the door and across that finish line. We'll go to our judges here. Ernestus on the left, Daniel on the right. And there it is. We do have a decision. Daniel Andreev is going to get the win. Split call one more time from Ed there in the middle. But Daniel Andreev moving on to the finals.
Indeed he is. Daniel Andreev off to the finals. Ernestus down to the third place matchup. And now what seems to almost be a repeat of last year. These two, Zach O'Sullivan, the previous Virtual Drift champion, up against the Team Heinze RTR Mustang of Alan Hines, the current VDC champion, to see who will make it into the finals. The lights go on and the battle's underway, initiating in. Zach O'Sullivan looks good. Alan Hines goes way far inside, putting a tire up on that rumble strip, trying to keep up with Zach O'Sullivan here as they go through the Manji section. They're transitioning along each other's bumpers. They're on the door as they leave enough room for the final transition and that final wall ride. Alan Hines puts it back on the door of Zach O'Sullivan.
A scrappy start to the top 4 battle between these two, Zach O'Sullivan, Alan Hines, both previous champions, multiple time champions. Down to inside clip number 1. Alan a little offline, a little bit on the inside. Right back onto the door of Zach O'Sullivan around inside clip number 2. Now heading up the small little hill over the little hump and into the final outside zone. Crossing that finish line, we'll flip him around.
Flip him around indeed. Alan Hines now in the lead. Zach O'Sullivan ready to chase him down. Who goes to see Daniel Andreev in the finals? Who goes to see Ernestus Yakulibis in the third place matchup? tower illuminates, and off they go. The second half of the battle now underway. The run-up, the initiation in. Alan Hines out front. Look at Zach, wheel to wheel off that initiation, down the hill into outer zone 2. Now into the Manji section through outer zone 3 and 4. Alan Hines throwing lots of angle, but Zach O'Sullivan right there with him, matching that angle on the wheels as they come into that final outer zone. And oh, some contact right at the end from Zach O'Sullivan.
Yeah, Zach saying get on with it. Let's take another look here on the replay. Alan initiating in. Zach quick to get onto the door. Would have been some wheel-to-wheel contact. Filling outside zone number 2, 3 as well. Zach diving in that chase position around that inside clip number 2. Final transition here, and Zach, a little bit of contact there before crossing that finish line. We'll go to our judges for the final time here in the top 4, and let's go one more time. Zach's on the left, Alan's on the right. Winner moves on into the final battle. Face off against Daniel Andreev. Loser sticks around though to face off against Ernestas Yakulibis for the third place battle. And we do have a decision. Alan Hines gets the win, moves on into the finals. But before our finals, we do have our third place battle again. Ernestas Yakulibis and Zach O'Sullivan will come right on back to the line to face off for third place.
So Alan Hines moves on to the finals to see Daniel Andreev. But now our third place matchup, Zach O'Sullivan versus Ernestas Yakulibis. Zach will lead run number 1. Ernestas will chase him down. Just hear them in the background, starting to come up to the line.
We're actually missing Zach from the server. I don't know if he got disconnected. Waiting to see if he's going to join back. Or if Ernestas will indeed get a bye run here in the third for third place.
It's time to have your internet go out.
Yeah, hearing Zach forgot that the third place battle was a thing. It's FT's fault. Bring back third place battle.
Literally, yep. Much agree. Absolutely. Needs to happen. Everyone needs to do it. There we go. It's like he never left. He was here the whole time.
The whole time.
Yep, yep. So, lead lane, Zach O'Sullivan. Chase lane, Ernestas Yakulibis, ready to throw it down, initiating in for our third place matchup. Through outer zone 1, down the hill, Ernestas with a lot of aggression into that first turn of the course. Now through the Manji section, how we got away with not touching the back bumper of Zach O'Sullivan is unreal as they send it into this final outer zone, but oh no! A lot of contact there at the end, but Zach manages to keep his foot in it and keep from spinning out.
Yeah, turning the battle into bumper cars there in the last and final outside zone. Let's take another look. Zach initiating in. Ernestas. Close in chase, almost pushing him through the latter half of turn number 1. Look at the dive from Ernestas in that chase position. Heading into that outside zone, out to the floating one there. Zach, perfect line. Here, perfect lead, and there's the contact. Couple little boops before crossing the finish line.
back around at the start line. Ernestus Ukulamis in the lead. Zach O'Sullivan ready to chase him down in this third place matchup here of round 1 of the Virtual Drift Championship. The lights go on and off they go. Who's going to take home third place? They initiate in. Side by side, wheel to wheel, down towards Outer Zone 2. Not quite filling all of Outer Zone 2 was the lead of Ernestus. Zach O'Sullivan sticking right with them, though, keeping that wheel planted on the door as they drive up the hill into that final outer zone. Lots of angle thrown by Ernestus. Had to catch it. Zach corrected and matched his angle through to the finish.
Yeah, it looked like a lot of left foot brake there in that last and final outside zone 2, almost causing some contact. We'll take a second look here, see if I'm seeing it right. Ernestus, perfect line down through. Inside clip number 1. Could have been deeper on outside zone number 2, though. Zach making a dive in that chase position. It pays off as Ernestus drives into the inside maybe a little bit too soon. Doesn't quite extend that line. Here we go. Yeah, really almost coming to a stop there. Out front is Ernestus. We'll go to our judges. Ernestus on the left, Zach O'Sullivan on the right. It looks like we do have a decision. Zach O'Sullivan, after leaving the server and forgetting about the third place battle, takes home third place for round 1.
Hopefully he doesn't forget about other little things that happen after the finals. Maybe he's all clued back in. You know, it's round 1. We're allowed a couple of mistakes, but now it comes down to this. From yesterday's qualifying to today's top 32, all the way down to now, the finals. Round 1 of the Virtual Drift Championship here at the Anglesey circuit in partnership with Sim Magic, Grip Royal, Geronimo Designs, Horthen Mods, and Yoka Designs. Here they go for the finals. Daniel Andreev out front. Alan Hines chasing him down through the Manji section, bumper to bumper as they come up the hill. Alan Hines is right along the door, transitioning up the hill, leaving a lot of room. Alan Hines going into the wall right at the end. Wow, yeah, this battles.
Yeah, I think it was Daniel actually getting into the wall first. We'll take a second look. Daniel in that lead position. Alan right along the bumper through that initiation, but throws him way offline for turn number 1. He ends up getting back into the pocket here through the Manji section, down into this next outside zone or around the inside clip. Alan as close as you could be. Last and final transition, and no, maybe not. Yeah, Daniel staying off of it. Alan getting into the wall a little bit and losing quite a bit of angle.
Let's see what happens here in run number 2. Who is crowned Season 10's first winner? And who takes home second place? Alan Hines now in the lead. Daniel Andreev chasing him down. The lights go on for what could be the final time today. Initiating in, Alan Hines looking good. Daniel Andreev driving up to that door as he gets right on it for Outer Zone 2, leaving enough room for the transition to Outer Zone 3. Switching back to Outer Zone 4, Daniel Andreev leaves that room, but then comes back onto the door of Alan Hines. Up the hill they come into that final Outer Zone. Alan Hines goes into the wall that time, but not enough to upset Daniel in that chase as they cross that finish line.
Yeah, kept things going. Let's take another look here. Alan Hines out front. Daniel Andreev giving chase here in the final battle for round number 1, season 10. Alan throwing it into outside zone number 1. Perfect through turn 1 as well. Down to outside zone number 2, filling 3, and now down into 4 where he throws it a little backwards here. Goes wide for the inside clip. Does grab that next box and then transitions back where he catches a little bit of that wall before crossing that finish line. We go to our judges. Is it for the final time here at Anglesey Circuit? Layout A, Daniel on the left, Alan Hines on the right. Who will take home the win? Who will get second? Dex got third position and up on the podium. And there it is. They go left for Daniel Andreev. Daniel Andreev gets the win over Alan Hines. Daniel Andreev takes home the win for round number 1 here in Anglesey Circuit. Alan Hines takes second place. And Zach O'Sullivan, after forgetting about the third place battle, takes home third place.
Ow.
Yeah, what a round to begin the brand new season number 10. It's crazy to think that that we're now in season 10, but here we are, almost 10 years later. It's insane. Tanner, what you think?
I mean, what a journey it's been. I mean, I'm already kind of losing my voice. It's absolutely crazy. And if it's just the start of what we're going to see, you know, we threw this curveball track at them. We kind of did it a lot last year as they interrupt me if you want while they do their triple tandem here. The staple of what these guys have created with this three-way tandem. It's just so good. And I love being here every season for it. I love being a part of this and watching these guys grow from where they were to where they are now. And no one messed it up as they crossed the line, and that's all that matters. I had to stay quiet for the last outer zone there. It's absolutely awesome, and I think, if anything, if you haven't already hit that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell button, you are in for a treat this season. I think it's going to be one of the closest seasons we've had in a long time.
Yeah, absolutely, and much different format than what we're used to in prior seasons. We've given the track to the drivers to practice on. A couple of seasons we gave it to them 2 weeks in advance. Went to 1 week. We tried a thing last season. If you want to go back and watch that, the Anglesey exhibition event, we gave the track out just 1 hour before the event, but we didn't have qualifying for that event. Just kind of threw people into a bracket that was randomized with super limited practice. And now for this season, we split up into 2 days, qualifying on Saturday, the main event on Sunday, and we give the track out just 24 hours ahead of qualifying on that Friday. So a bit of a surprise for the drivers. Kind of wonder how many laps they are putting in, how many drivers are staying up overnight with the track and whatnot. I didn't see too many in the practice server, but they were definitely getting their runs in and getting prepared for the round. It showed 90s all the way across the board for qualifying, and then through all of these battles, started out a little rocky. We did, you know, early in the morning, maybe early morning jitters, but once we got rocking and rolling, it was some good battles all the way through the event. So again, we hope all of you enjoyed it. We will be releasing the track shortly as well. Again, I gotta double check some things and get it all in order before releasing it out into the public. Get the links ready. A couple of post-round things to do as well before getting it out. So please be patient there over in the Discord. We'll get it out. We'll get it out onto our servers as well for everyone to enjoy. It works just as good with the 5.0 data as well. Lots of fun. It's the classic layout with a couple of little changes here, and then updated, of course, by Nuke Drop. You can go ahead and get the updated version of the track if you'd like to over there on Overtake, or check out his Patreon. He also has a Patreon exclusive update to the track as well. You can get from him, and a bunch of other tracks. Again, thank you all for watching. Thank you to our sponsors as well: Sim Magic, Rip Roll, Joka Design, Ali, Yusuf, Horthen, Mods, and Geronimo. Joining the VDC team this season. Got some surprises coming up, as well as an update to our 6.0 cars as well. Again, we'll see you in a couple of weeks for round number 2. We hope everyone enjoys the holidays and the new year, and we'll see you again in January.